All set.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Earl Exum. I'm the president of the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization, affectionately known as WASCO. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about the MLK mural. So of course, this is the week of Martin Luther King's birthday celebration. And you may know that in June of 2021, we unveiled the new mural in the town center. It was very exciting, and it was exciting because it didn't just include MLK. It included some information about our history of West Hartford and our current leaders, and kind of gives us an opportunity to take the town forward to talk more about inclusiveness, social justice, and many, many things that our town represents. The interesting thing about the mural is many people walk by it and don't necessarily understand some of the imagery and the symbolism that's there. So today we wanted to take the opportunity to explain the mural in a little more detail. And we have many of the people who collaborated to actually bring this mural to us here to discuss it today. So of those people, we have Adrienne Billings-Smith. She is a recently elected town councilor in the town of West Hartford, and she is also the president of Concerned Parents of Color of West Hartford. We have Matt Conway, who's the executive director of RiseUP, a nonprofit organization that has brought 39 of these murals to the state of Connecticut. We have Tracey Wilson. She is a former teacher, history teacher in West Hartford, and is also the town historian. We have Jen Matos, who is the executive director of the Noah Webster House and Historical Society. And we hope to have Corey Payne, who's actually the artist who actually painted this mural for us, and he is a resident or former resident of West Hartford. So with that, I want to turn it over to Matt and Adrienne, and they're going to tell you a little bit about how this mural came to be.
Thank you, Earl, and thank you everyone who's attending today. Matt, I'll let you start, and then I'll.
Yeah, sure. So this project came about after a call to communities to bring awareness to social justice and civil rights leaders, both national and local, in the state of Connecticut. And West Hartford was one of the first towns to sign up to bring a piece of public art to the community. And each one of these murals across the state are, really developed, designed, and organized by a local steering committee. And Adrienne helped to lead that steering committee along with other individuals on this call. And we ended up unveiling this along with 5 other murals on Juneteenth last year. And we've since done 15 of these type of murals across the state, and have a bunch more planned for this year. But this was really a love of the community coming together to make this happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When Matt came to the town, our mayor, Sherry Cantor, came to me and a couple other individuals and said, let's do something, beautiful and meaningful. So I took it upon myself to take the lead. That's kind of my personality, and started thinking about everything our town had been through. I started thinking about the members of WASCO. I also thought to Dr. Tracey Wilson, who's our town historian, everything, all the beautiful things they've done for this town, ensuring that Black history was cemented in our curriculum, and ensuring that our neighbors and our community knew that how important this was, especially after everything we had been coming out of, COVID, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, wanted to make sure that this was meaningful and went further than just that piece of that period of time, but depicted a story of West Hartford and how far we've come and what more we need to do. So, I know that Corey had presented something to the town at first, in terms of what he thought would be a great, mural or art for the Blueback Square. But as I said, I personally wanted more than that. I wanted to show West Hartford history, and I wanted to show American history, sitting on our wall, something that people could really see that there was a story that needed to be told, that was bigger than us. So that's kind of where I went. And when I began to come together with the steering committee, we started to develop some ideas. And we created something that's everlasting and something that is just truly beautiful. And I'm so very biased that I think it's the best one in the state. I mean, just looking at it right now and seeing the beautiful blue sky behind all these beautiful pieces. Every time I walk through the Blueback Square, I get chills because it's there and it means something. And I couldn't be more proud of what we created together.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Adrian. Next, we're gonna have Tracy Wilson, and she's gonna talk to us about the imagery on the mural that represents Bristow. You're on mute, Tracy.
I want to thank Matt and Adrian for really putting this all together. It really is incredible. And I, like Adrian, when I'm in the center, going to the library, I make an extra effort to go and just look at the mural one more time. And this fall, when we were working on the Witness Stones project with the 8th graders, this was part of the presentation that we gave to tell them about the different parts of the mural. And I've heard from parents that their 8th graders are taking them to the mural and telling them the different parts of it. I'm just so excited that there's a real local part to this. Like this is a West Hartford mural with national figures on it as well, but it really is spectacular. So this piece is a depiction of the hands of Bristow, and we really only have one thing that actually comes from Bristow, and that is the mark he made on his manumission paper, which was in May of 1775. And so I think the hands really are a great depiction of him, because we, in fact, don't know what he looked like, and this shows him breaking the chains of slavery here, which he did by buying his freedom from Thomas Hart Hooker in 1775, right before Hooker went off to fight in the American Revolution. We know from the Old Center Cemetery, the one gravestone we have of someone who was enslaved here is Bristow's, and it tells us he was born in Africa in 1831, and he lived 83 years. And we never knew until this year anything about him before 1775. And we've just recently found out that he actually fought in the French and Indian Wars, also with a man named Ambo. And that's where we think he got the money to buy his freedom. He had to raise 60 pounds to get that money. And it's really interesting to see him letting this piece, Dove, fly, because he had a really interesting life in freedom. And sometimes we talk about freedom and unfreedom, like how free was he? He actually leaves a will also, and in his will, he gives his worldly goods to the children of the people who enslaved him, which, it takes a lot of thinking to think about how that could happen. But I do think it tells us something about the community in which he lived and how he lived in this in a state of freedom, but probably not equality, which I would say is certainly a legacy and a through line that really still affects our community today. I don't know if the next slide is the jars. And so along the bottom here, there are 7 jars that spell the word freedom, and they each have soil in them. And part of our Witness Stones project has been to go to the sites where we know enslaved people lived and dig up the soil and put it in a jar. And the idea came from the Equal Justice Institute in Montgomery, Alabama, where Brian Stevenson had a project where they've investigated and found over 4,000 lynchings in the South, and they have sent people out to the sites where people were lynched. And now if you go to the museum, there's a whole wall of these jars with this soil in it. And the idea is, or people who have dug the soil have said, if there's just one drop of blood or one drop of sweat from this person that's in this soil, that's a powerful memorial of their lives. And so we sort of copied that idea and thought about it with people who were enslaved here, and really trying to get the people in town to understand that the land here, that much of the land here was land where enslaved people were forced to live and forced to work. So I think this is a great symbol of that in the town. So the design and the art is just, as I said before, it's just spectacular. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. And now we're going to have Adrian Billings-Smith tell us a little more about sort of the Black Lives Matter element, where we pay homage to people who have lost their lives, either because they were killed or because of bondage. So thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. When we were trying to figure out how to honor folks who have been killed or have been held in bondage, we wanted to still be this symbol of hope, that we would get back, past this. And, as we went through as a group, actually, Tracy Wilson mentioned a particular image that came to mind. And I thought to myself, and others thought, okay, here we are. We have this image, this face of this woman. And within the Black community, you'll read some sort of research and articles about, how slavery decimated the Black family. And I actually was watching a TikTok today and speaking about the Black family and how maybe the Black family wasn't meant to be patriarchal, but actually matriarchal, because of how it was split and how Black women have sort of taken on this heavy responsibility. So to see this woman, again, you think to mothers who have taken on this heavy load of their children being lost, and to see her hair filled with their names. And when I thought about hair, I was thinking about traditional African or African-American hairstyles that could really be symbolized. People know there's an afro, but I wanted to kind of do something traditional. If you read in any sort of history where they call them dreadlocks. And when Africans came over and they did have dreadlocks, or people from the islands had dreadlocks, it was because their hair was called dreadful. And so it's a symbol that that was taken from people in traditional hairstyles. And that's not what they're for. It's very spiritual. If you know anything about any type of history of hair that deals with African hair, down to our rice paddies in the Carolinas, and how rice was brought to the Americas from Africa. You'll know that hair is very symbolic and very meaningful in the Black community. So we went with the locks, and we went and we instituted these names. Some are very recent and inside a visceral reaction, you know, the George, the Brianna, the Ahmauds that we're seeking justice for. And then you'll have some that you may not recognize, but those are folks that were enslaved within West Hartford, a Greenville, who else, a Lou, a Dinah, a Peleg, who were enslaved. And I also, when I thought about it, because I am a part of the LGBTQI community and others on this panel are, I wanted to make sure that we were honoring folks in the transgender and the LGBTQI community also that were people of color. So I wanted it to be to symbolize a diverse group of individuals that needed, their names needed to be said. You know, it's a part of that say my name mantra, or say their name, that it was so beautifully done with the colors that Corey chose, and how Corey chose how he put those names in there. And I think he did a beautiful job of making this a piece where when you go and look at it and you're reading those names, but you're seeing this beautiful silhouette of someone on the back, and the backdrop is clouds and the sun. And, you know, you move on to the MLK piece and you see the rainbow, but it's heavy, but at the same time, for me, I see there's hope. You know, these names have brought a lot of people to the forefront to fight for justice. And I think that's what this symbolizes, is the fight for justice and other people taking on some of that load.
Thank you, Adrienne. Okay, next we are going to have Matt talk about the MLK portion. Matt, you're on mute.
One of the thoughts behind the mural design was to tell a story and to have a timeline starting with Bristow and going to the civil rights leaders of the generation before us, and then wrapping around to the front, to the people from today. And this part of the mural has Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Bernard Lafayette, and Ella Baker, three of, you know, the original organizers of the civil rights movement. And a common thread that the three of these individuals had was they led and they built the nonviolence movement of organizing, and have really played the forefront. Dr. Martin Luther King lost his life for this. His entire, you know, mural campaign is based off of the thousands of sermons and speeches he gave, giving us the roadmap to where we should be now and into the future when it comes to civil rights and equality. Dr. Bernard Lafayette is actually still alive today, and I think West Hartford may have gotten an opportunity to meet him at some point. And he helped to write a nonviolence curriculum that is instituted in Connecticut as well and taught in Connecticut. And Ella Baker is kind of known as the mother of the civil rights movement, and a lot of her behind the scenes work organizing the folks on the front end. And, you know, having her on this, you know, shows that this wasn't just, you know, the men of the 40s, 50s, and 60s fighting this fight, but it was also the women who were leading this fight alongside them. And the rainbow, you know, continues to represent that theme of hope that we have in this mural, and looking to the future after the storm, which then wraps around to the front, which I think we have someone else to give a synopsis on that.
Yeah, so Jennifer is going to talk about my favorite part of the mural, which is West Hartford's first.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the mural. It is so stunningly beautiful. And anybody who hasn't seen it yet, I think you'll just stop and want to stare at it when you come across it, because it really has just enlivened the space. And to know that there's so much meaning behind it makes it that much more special. So I'm very privileged to talk about our West Hartford firsts, and they happen to be 3 very accomplished women. So the mural depicts Tammy Rush Exum, Judy Casperson, and Gertrude Blanks. And these are the first Black Americans in present day history to make several notable achievements in West Hartford. Tammy Rush Exum, who's depicted at the top, was the first Black person in West Hartford to be elected to Connecticut's statewide office when she was elected as a state legislator to the 19th district, representing West Hartford, Avon, and Farmington. And previously, she was the first elected Black woman to the West Hartford Board of Education. Judy Casperson, who's to her left, is an accomplished business and community leader, and she was the first elected Black woman to the West Hartford Town Council. And you can see in the photograph to the right that there they are. There's Tammy and Judy standing next to their portraits, which I just think is just so cool and amazing. The third woman depicted is a woman named Gertrude Blanks. And Gertrude Blanks was the first African-American graduate of Hall High School, and she graduated in 1938. And she actually shared a lot of her experiences about what it was like to be here in West Hartford in 1938, and it wasn't easy. The way she was treated would be really shocking to a lot of people. And she was just such a resilient person. She went on to have this very accomplished career at the Hartford Public Library. She was a beloved storyteller and really a change maker in Greater Hartford, but she spent her childhood here in West Hartford. So this is actually, I don't know, maybe one of the most prominent portions of the painting, I guess, because it's right in the front of the library, and it's very striking to see these 3 beautiful women up on the wall in larger than life. And so now you know a little bit about their story and that they are West Hartford firsts.
Thank you so much, Jen. And thanks to all the panelists. This is it's just a remarkable asset, I think, that we have in our community that, quite frankly, represents our community really well, and the diversity and how much we care about each other. And it lets people be seen who might not otherwise be seen or recognized, and gives us an opportunity to tell this story over and over and over again. So now, Tracey actually wants to tell a story about Judy Casperson. So let's take a minute to hear that.
Thanks, Earl. As Jen was talking, it reminded me of a story that involved students at Kingswood Oxford School who studied a man named Peleg Knott last year. And he's actually been in the news a little bit this past week because the Washington Post just did this huge study of people who have served in Congress who were enslavers. And I think there are maybe 15 from Connecticut who were elected to Congress, one of them being Jeremiah Wadsworth. And Jeremiah Wadsworth made a huge amount of money during the American Revolution as the commissary for the Continental troops and then for the French troops. And he enslaved a man named Peleg Knott. And if you look back on the part that Adrian talked about, Peleg's name is in there. It's in orange right below Hannibal, right to the right of where it says Quisha. And the students studied him. And this man, Peleg Knott, actually ran Wadsworth's estate, which is in the northeast corner of West Hartford. And he helped to breed horses and to run this, planted a huge orchard there. And one of the students at KO, he was elected as a Black governor of the Hartford area. So African Americans elected a Black governor on at the same time as elections happened among the white male population, usually in the beginning of June. And one of the students interviewed Judy to ask her if she knew anything about Peleg Knot, and she did not. And in the interview, it's just really touching because she said, you know, I thought I was the first, but now I know I stood on the shoulders of Peleg Knot. And so I think that's part of the power of something like this, where we can make these connections between people who were enslaved here and you know, the 21st century. So, thank you.
Tracy, thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story and really represents what this is about, to drive those conversations and to ask these kind of questions that will only better inform us and better enlighten us. So thank you again. So now we have some time for questions, and I propose that if you have a question, you put it in the Q&A and we'll field the question. I'll just take a few minutes to wait to see if there are questions that come forward.
While we're waiting for questions, I wanted to just quickly share just how proud West Hartford should be in just what you guys have put together here. Because when we first showed up to Blueback Square and we're like, hey, here's the budget we're thinking for a mural, and it's probably, you know, with this budget we can probably do, you know, just the section where Martin is on. And in that, you know, quick conversation, it was, no, we're going to paint this entire wall and we're going to get this funded, you know, doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. And I think that's just a really powerful testament to the leadership in town, the community's commitment to raising the money for this. So it's been an honor just working with everyone that we have over the past, coming up on a year now, for when we started this. So just thank you, West Hartford, and you should all just be like so proud and for this.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We don't have any questions as of yet.
I also wanted to take a moment for the quotes that are on there. Those are also, you know, we were very specific when we were choosing the quotes for Kamala Harris being the first female Black vice president woman, and then Amanda Gorman. I don't know if she was the first junior poet laureate or if Black. So we wanted to make sure that everything we were doing told a story. And, you know, everyone who was involved from this group and others that aren't here today made sure that we were definitely trying to tell a story and put forth these voices and showcase these powerful and people that people knew that everything was so detailed when we thought about it. You know, from what photos the images we chose of Martin Luther King Jr. to Bernard to Ella Baker, to how the jars looked and how the colors in the jars, to the hair. Everything was so thoughtful because we as a group wanted this, like I said, to be a forever project. When you walk by it, every time you walk by it, like Tracy said, you want to stop and you want to look at it. And you wonder, and you'll see different nuances every time you walk past it, in my opinion, that you just didn't see. And it's beautiful. And, you know, when you go back to Bristow and the peace dove, that continues on. You see it over Dr. King's shoulder. That dove continues on because it's flying to find that peace. Everything had a meaning. And I think the artist Corey Payne did an amazing job, you know, taking sketches from people, especially me. I am not an artist. I draw stick figures, and taking those sketches and taking those ideas and making it into this. And I just commend him for all the work that he has done, not only in our community, but around the state. So
I want to tell one more story before we field our first question here. Is I remember when Matt called me and asked me my thoughts about the mural, and I think I had the same reaction that several people on this call had. He said, "Well, what about a Martin Luther King mural?" And I was thinking, well, personally, I was like in high school when we were really, really fighting to get Martin Luther King Day to be recognized as a national holiday. And for many people know, it was state by state at first, but several states did not recognize it. And there were boycotts and all these things. And it was a real struggle at that time, I felt, to get us to recognize it nationally. And then I knew that West Hartford had been celebrating Martin Luther King Day for 25 years up to that point, maybe 24, 25 years. And while it may not have been warmly received, it's become, one of the premium MLK events in the state. So it felt to me like it needed to be something more, because it was looking a little bit backward. And of course, Martin Luther King will be a forever figure. And I don't know that there'll ever be an orator who's quite as good as Martin Luther King or be able to sell a vision as much as he could. But it felt like it needed to be more. And to look at it now and see all that it is and the story that it tells, about our town is just so encouraging and engaging for me. So I think it just speaks a lot to the town. And the other thing I'll say is, one thing about West Hartford is when people have a vision, there's enough people in West Hartford that will bring a vision forward. I mean, anything from a boundless playground to a mural that maybe 25 years ago we could have not even imagined. So it's just a great community that we have. So now I will go with the first question. I'll take the first stab at it, and then I'll ask everyone to give their thoughts who is interested. It says, do you plan to add anything additional to the mural? And what I will say is that we want the mural, and I think I can speak for everyone, we want the mural absolutely to spur more things. So Jen Matos is going to do something on the Noah Webster House and Historical Society website to give people more insight to what's going on in the mural, and we'll maybe build upon that. But I'll open it up in case anyone else has any additional thoughts. Sure, Tracy.
One thing that the Witness Stones Project is hoping to do is to tell the stories of the 11 enslaved people who are on that mural, and try and use QR codes so people who walk by will be able to hear the stories. And I've just made a connection with the Mayor's Youth Council. And there are 3 people from the Mayor's Youth Council who want to take this on as a project. So we're hoping that we will have that as an addition to this. And I just wanted to mention that today, January 20th, is just a year from President Biden's inauguration, the day that Amanda Gorman delivered her poem, from which the quote is taken. And the New York Times today, she wrote an editorial or an opinion piece about being asked to do that, and the fear that she had, and what she did to make her way to the Capitol on that day. So it's really really worth reading. And little did we know we would be on that. We could match the very day that she gave this. She delivered this poem just a year ago today.
Yeah, it's beautiful to have something what seems so current with Amanda Gorman, and obviously the youth that she has, and the incredible future. Just speaks to the fact that this all doesn't just look back, but it feels like it looks forward to me as well.
I have a question for Adrian and Matt. How did you guys select the people that you ended up representing on the mural, especially the current, the West Hartford first. And maybe that's not such a surprise, but I think it is really cool that it's not just a history mural. It does have, current events and current people who are alive today on it.
I mean, that was a group effort. And, we went back and forth on who should be on it. Everyone agreed Gertrude was going to be on it no matter what. But we went back, we were trying to figure out, how to bring it full circle to first because you can't put everyone on the front. We had, 20 people on the front of the thing, but we wanted to really narrow it down. And exactly what you said, to people who are living and breathing and here because they can tell their own story. And that's what makes it so beautiful on the front of to have Tammy and Judy on there. They can tell their own story and they can continue to tell their story because there are other things that are going to happen in their lives. So they're not just, just a talking piece, they're right there and we can go to them and it's like Earl said, it doesn't just look back, it looks forward. And they're going to have their own legacy to tell. And for the person who asked, will be adding anything to this mural? I don't know that we'll add anything to this mural, but I think there are other places within West Hartford that we can do similar things to. And it doesn't have to just be for Black folks. This is about West Hartford history. There's so much Indigenous history that's within West Hartford also. So there are so many things that we can take from this mural and create, because art is boundless and we can create something just from being inspired by this mural. So I think as you walk past this mural, others will come up with ideas of what we can do and the people that we can honor and our history that we can honor in West Hartford, because I think that we have a bold, complex history in West Hartford. And I think these stories need to be told. And I think was my hope when the mural was being created, was that this inspired folks and that stories would continue to be told within West Hartford because of our history.
Thank you, Adrian. We have another question, and I'll throw it to the panel. On the photo with the woman's hair, is there any specific reason of about why her neck appears to be split in half?
I think that was you can go, Matt. I think that was an artistic choice. I think that it was a whimsical, the way was supposed to look whimsical, but Matt, you can definitely go ahead.
It's kind of like floating. I wish Corey was here to speak with him. He's the woman is like floating up, into the sky. So I'm sure just artistic element. Yeah. I don't think there was anything purposeful or meaning behind it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I have another question for you guys. I think I read somewhere, like how long is a painting like this supposed to last? I hope for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah, so this could last, anywhere from 10 to 20 years. We put a clear coating on the entire thing afterwards, which protects it from UV rays. If anyone, does anything to it, it protects it from all of that. So these can last very long. And honestly, Corey lives about 2 blocks away. So he's always great to come and touch things up whenever they need to be.
I would say I'm struck by certainly by Gertrude Blank's on the front, and I love that these women are facing Main Street. They're sort of commanding Main Street, I would say. But part of her story was that her mother was a maid in a house on Steel Road, and she lived in that house with her mother. And was not allowed to walk in the front door of the house, nor walk into the living room of that house. And she went to Morley School, and in interviews with her talked about how kids jeered her as she walked to school. And the tough time she had at Hall High in the 1930s. And I have to say, I was really struck in our Martin Luther King Day celebration on Monday of the student Skyla Nelson, who spoke, who is a student at Conard, who had some of the same stories to tell. And so, the discrimination that Gertrude Blanks felt over 80 years ago, it isn't gone. I mean, we have this mural, but there's still fights to fight here. And Skyla was so poised in telling her story on Monday. But I think a mural like this, right in the center of town, I hope encourages people to find their voice and be willing to speak up like she did.
Yeah, I agree, Tracy. I think that I really, really believe that this will inspire people to let their voices be heard. I want to say about the first, how important it is. They say you have to see it to be it sometimes. The fact that we still produce first, it feels like we want to say, oh, we've come so far, but we're still producing first in fairly recent history. But on an encouraging side, Judy Casperson became the first Black town council person, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, or maybe a little more of a decade ago. Since then, you have a Tammy Exum, you have a Carol Anderson Blanks, you have a Lorna Thompson Ferguson, I think I messed that up, but and you have an Adrian Billings Smith. That the great thing is that it wasn't one and done in our town, right? Often, sometimes it happens. It's one and done. It's a very long time before you see the next. We were seeing a very encouraging pattern, and again, it just throughout West Hartford, we're seeing lots of people represented, and I just think that's a very fortunate thing that our town has that makes it the wonderful town that it is.
I agree, Earl, and I agree with you also, Tracy. We're well aware that there's still discrimination within our town, but we have to keep moving, and we have to keep progressing, and we have to have these sorts of things so people know that this is what our town believes in, and these are our values in our town,
Right.
what we're standing for. So when we have a mural this large sitting in the middle, as we all know, in our town, people can't shy away from that. And hopefully it's waking up people to recognize, okay, I always say the signs in your front yard don't speak, you do. So we have to give people these images because history matters, because history produces our present. And like I said, it was so important to have Judy and Tammy on here because they have an experience that can be told out loud. And unfortunately, we lost Gertrude, but fortunately, so many people, because she was a storyteller, so many people have stories of her and what she did so they can continue on her legacy. And we have people who will continue on, Judy and Tammy's legacy, but they can tell their story now and they can tell the experiences that they've had. They are successful women who have, broken the glass ceiling, right? But they can also talk about their experiences dealing with discrimination in their professions and in their lives and what they've done. So they humanize the mural for me. And I think it's very special to have them there. And I, as Judy said about Peleg, I stand on the shoulders of these very women in our town. And they have been so supportive. So I think it's so great to have this sitting there. And I thank Matt for starting the MLK 39 mural project, because it's brought a lot of conversation to West Hartford, and it's helped us continue to grow as a town.
Yeah, well, I want to amplify a word that you used, Adrian, value, right? This I think just contributes to and reinforces our values, just like our annual MLK celebration, just like all the many works. You know, I love the boundless playgrounds and the boundless baseball fields we have in West Hartford. It represents our values, that we have people in our community that are going to say, you know, in the case of a boundless playground, we want everyone to have a place to play. We want everyone to have a place to play baseball if they want to play baseball. This community includes them and works hard to make them be included. That's part of our community's values. And I think this mural and the things we do like this mural, the Witness Stone Project, you know, the great work that Jen Matos does at the Historical Society to preserve the history of our town and tell it, that's all part of this town's values. And when you think about a community and how people behave, it's built upon the set of expectations and values that we have, you know, cordial discussion, community conversations like this, intelligent interface. You know, I think that I just want that to re-emphasize and amplify that word. This is part of our town's values. So I'm very reluctant to bring this to a close. We don't have any more questions. And I just enjoy the conversation so much. But I also know that we have a very busy community of people that have participated today. So I want to thank our panelists once again for participating. I think it's wonderful because many people have walked by this mural and not had the full interpretation of it. They notice how beautiful it is. And I've quite frankly, I've heard people walk by and look at Tammy's picture and say, that's Kamala Harris. And you say, no, it's not. So we've got to, you know, many people did not know that the hands that were unshackled, or the shackles are broken and the dove set free, represented Bristow. So I'm just so thrilled that we got to share this, that we now have it on West Hartford Community Interactive with the posterity so people can see it again. And I also want to thank, in addition to the panelists, Jen Evans and West Hartford Community Interactive. And I don't know that people realize what a wonderful asset what we used to call the television station, now what we call Community Interactive is. And Jen Evans and her staff, the most professional you can find in a town to bring you these type of stories and this type of information. So thank you to all the panelists and thank you to all the participants. This has just been a wonderful experience. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.